All right. Hello, ITSAN world and amazing participants. Welcome to the webinar for the month of February. I am so excited to be hosting our very own ITSAN board tonight for all of us. So as you all are clicking in, get settled, get comfortable. We've got our very own ITSAN board here tonight, ready to share with us the journey of topical steroid withdrawals, which, as all of us warriors know, some parts are similar, but at the same time, it's a very different journey for each person. So our hope tonight, as you are all clicking in and getting cozy with us for the next hour, is that you will hear something tonight that resonates with you, that offers you more hope, that we may offer more resources, education, and support for you in your journey through topical steroid withdrawals or in caregiving for someone that you love who is going through this experience. So just a couple of reminders before we get started. We will do a Q&A at the end of the session, but go ahead and enter your questions at any time throughout. And if there's a question that's really pertinent, that makes sense, is really relevant while we're in the middle of answering questions, we'll try to get them. Our moderator will get those questions to me as soon as we can as well. And also, don't forget to follow ITSAN on Facebook. Just type in ITSAN in your search bar. Follow the ITSAN group to stay up to date on the latest information and happenings and work that ITSAN is doing. And also, always remember that we are always accepting donations to continue our good work and to continue to create awareness about this totally preventable disease. So thank you for joining us. Welcome to our February webinar. Tonight we are hosting the Board of Directors for ITSAN, minus one member, but most of us are here tonight, and we look forward to sharing a bit of our journey and some very specific things that we went through in our withdrawal experience, and hope that we would give you some insights and maybe support you in your journey as well. So again, remember to type in your questions throughout, and we will answer as many of them as we can. I do just want to read a quick disclosure here. The interview content and ideas are those of the participants, which is our governing board tonight, and by no means are meant to diagnose, treat, or suggest a treatment or regimen for any listeners. The guests here are brought to bring resources, education, and support for our ITSAN viewers, but do not necessarily represent the voice of ITSAN as an organization. All right, again, thank you for being with us tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. Let me see, we've got a few here already. All right, so I am Molly Evans. I have been a member of the ITSAN board since December, so just a couple of months. And in my role, I get to bring to you more education through blogging and through webinars for and on behalf of ITSAN and on all of you. So with that, I also would like to invite any topics that you would like in the comments when we post the webinar. Please feel free to leave me some comments, some feedback, and also any suggestions you might have for future work and topics. I am over 5 years, it always sounds so amazing when I say that, but over 5 years into my own topical steroid withdrawal journey, and life looks nothing today like it did 5 years ago, and at the same time I can tell you that the journey has taught me more than any other life lesson could have. So for one, I am very grateful and lucky to be here, to be a part of this board and organization, and also to be in the company of these amazing warrior women. And I will also tell you that every post that you write, that you share, is a voice of encouragement and sharing, and I hope that you are finding as much support with ITSAN as I did, because I know for me, finding ITSAN was like finding the light in the dark when I started my journey with topical steroid withdrawals. So with that, welcome, and I hope you are all comfortable. We'll go ahead and get started with our questions. Tonight we're interviewing our very own board, so thank you to all of you for being here tonight. Thank you to Rochelle and Jody and Kelly, who is our president of our board. If you guys could just wave and say hi.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us.
I wanted to interview the board for this webinar because I feel like, you know, we've got these, I've only been privy to kind of the inside of what the real work that's going in the advocacy behind ITSAN's efforts. And I've only been in the back scenes for the last 2 months. And each month as I sit down for the board meeting and I read through our notes and the work and the goals, I'm just blown away at what this organization really stands for. the mission that we're trying to accomplish, and the awareness we're trying to create so that we can prevent this totally preventable disease. And I feel like we all in the ITSAN world need to know exactly who's out here working so hard on all of our behalf. So this is a real treat for me to get to interview, I think, some of our biggest and brightest heroes and share a little bit of their story with you. So we're going to start with Kelly. So Kelly Barda is the president of ITSAN. And I know somewhere under that shirt, she's got a cape or something that she's holding down, because she's definitely superwoman when it comes to her spirit and her commitment to ITSAN and helping us with this very worthy work. So Kelly, we're going to start with you tonight. And I want to know a little bit, if you would share with us about just a little, we all know we've got a very long journey here, but if you would just kind of tell us how long you have been in steroid withdrawals, what percentage you feel you have healed at this point. Just give us those two facts. Everybody always wants to know. I think anybody we ever look at, we want to know, how long have you been doing it? How healed are you? And then if you would just share a little bit, like in a nutshell, your journey from the beginning. How did you become aware of topical steroid withdrawals, and how did you know it was going to be part of your life story when you first had that moment of awareness?
Ooh, that's a lot of questions.
Yes.
First of all, I want to say, like Molly did, it's such an honor to work with this group of people. Everyone is so passionate and so driven. They have amazing skill sets. I'm just really, really honored to be a part of this group and to serve our community, because I, just like Molly said, am indebted to ITSAN and the information that they put out, the help and support that they were to me when I went through my withdrawal. Because we all know it's such a challenging journey. So it's an honor to be able to serve at this point. So back to the questions. I am 6.5 years into topical steroid withdrawal. I've never used them once again, or once after I stopped. That was it. I had no idea what topical steroid withdrawal was. I didn't even know that you could become dependent on your medication. And so I took them for 26 years to manage my eczema, and it was managing my skin just fine. I had no real problem with that, except that I was developing a lot of allergies. And so I began to ask my doctor about it. He really didn't have a lot of answers, but I just, it wasn't just like your typical allergy. I'm having a sensitivity to gluten or dairy. It was, I'm breaking out in hives because I'm sitting in my car with a tank top on in the summer. Why is my skin breaking out in hives? Or putting my hand inside my purse. I'm becoming allergic to everything. So I really started doing my own research because my doctor wasn't giving me any answers. And I, of course, found that correlation between heightened allergies and long-term steroid use. It just makes sense that if you're using topical steroids for a long time, it does thin your skin. It's causing antigens to be able to get into your bloodstream. So I decided I was going to just use better skin barriers and maybe create my own skincare line. And so I started to experiment on myself. And lo and behold, I just kind of began to wean myself off of the steroids. And the day that I stopped, it was within 1 or 2 days, the symptoms began. So that burning feeling, the bone deep itch. And I remember being up all night on the couch, breathing like I was in labor because the pain was so intense. And all I could think that had changed was the fact that I had stopped using steroids. So I Googled it, like most of us here have. I came across ITSAN, which had just come online within 3 months. And everything that I read just resonated with me. I realized this is me. I figured I probably would get through the withdrawal within a couple months because I felt like I was very healthy. I exercised, I did juice fast, I didn't eat junk food. But we all know, that this is just a challenge. It's a journey. And that 3 months came and went. And I hadn't even peaked at that point. So
what percentage would you say you are healed now after 6.5 years?
I'd say probably 90 to 95%. I still have issues on my face, on my neck. You can see a little bit of wrinkling here in my hands. The stuff that people see, that's what I get to deal with still. But as far as functioning in life, I'm back to normal. Mm-hmm.
And when you said you started to wean yourself off of steroids, just kind of with a natural inclination to do that, and then you found ITSAN, did you ever use your steroids again, or was that Was that it?
That was
it. Okay.
It's like I knew. You had that gut feeling like, I can never go back there again. And I didn't want to set myself back. So it was just, the only way out is through, like we all heard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Kelly, give us just a glimpse of what was life like at that moment, and what transpired through this last 6.5 years. I mean, knowing that it got a lot worse before it got better. When did you know that life was no longer ordinary? Did it happen right away? When did you know that?
Well, I remember in the very beginning, within the first couple of weeks, some of those crazy symptoms started. Well, the burn, the itch was primarily in my upper body. I remember being in tears when I had to lift my arms to get my shirt off. My husband had to help me undress because I was in so much pain. That was within a couple of weeks. My face swelled up. I would try to go out to my son's soccer games and things like that. And I couldn't stand it anymore. Being in the Georgia heat, I would try to sit in my car in the shade, and even that got too much. It wasn't just my skin though. I started to have a lot of anxiety, or just, I know a lot of us have experienced the insomnia. We can't sleep at night, but during the day, it's just like my nerves were totally raw. So I had a really hard time having a lot of kids running around, having people over. And we did that a lot. I have family members here in Georgia, and we were always together. We hosted a lot. I just couldn't do that anymore. And all I wanted to do was be in a dark room by myself, in quiet, in darkness. And it just got more and more intense as the months went on, until I was completely bedridden. And at that point, that was when life really changed. It just got so intense so quickly, that I realized in order for me to heal, I had to take care of myself. And up to that point, my life was all about everybody else. I was very busy. It was like I woke up and life just kind of pulled me along, and I'd fall in bed at night. I was a mom. I taught my kids because they're in a classical academy. And so they're home 2 days, and they do school at home, and in school 3 days. So I was a teacher. I was a contract musician. I was always busy. And it got to a point where I just had to shut down and let go of my life, let go of the world, which was very hard because I found a lot of my identity in making everybody else happy. But I thought of that example where when you're in an airplane and they talk about put your mask on first and then put someone else's mask on. And I realized I can't be a good mom. I can't be a good wife. I can't be a good friend or sister or anything if I don't take care of myself. And I realized that steroids were destroying me, and I had to stop. And I trusted what I read on ITSAN and with Dr. Rappaport at the time, that you will heal. Everyone heals from this, and the only way out is through. So I made up my mind, and that was it.
Okay, can I dig a little deeper there, Kelly? Just on, because I know that when you talk about that, I'm sure it's raising emotions for a lot of people. When you talked about that was my identity, and then you're talking about sitting at a soccer game being difficult. Things that I would say most people going through some illness, maybe that would bring them joy, but wanting to be in a dark room alone because everything shifted, and really that's what happens with the withdrawal process, is everything shifts. But how long did you kind of push yourself through that, knowing like, I know I'm not being the best mom, I know I'm not going to heal if I keep doing that? How long did you push before would you say you gave in, resolved to this? Like, what was that knowing for you? How did it come, and how long did it take you?
I think it was a gradual process within several months, where my symptoms, at first I thought, I got this is okay. But then it just got more and more intense, where I couldn't even stand for more than 15 minutes because my legs were aching so much. They were turning purple. I had so much edema in the elephant skin. And I remember emotionally, with the anxiety and whatever's happening in the adrenals at the time, I remember starting into an argument with my husband, and I just realized I can't do this. I don't have the strength to even argue. And that was one of those times where I just let go. And I realized even with my kids, I just couldn't. I didn't have the strength or the ability to do it anymore. I literally just went into survival mode, and I had no choice. My body was doing that to me. I mean, I was living between my bed and the bath for almost 1.5 years. I was bedridden, and I couldn't be out of bed more than 15 minutes at a time without going into those intense itch attacks. And when I'd lay in bed, within 2 hours, the pain would get so bad that I'd have to get in the bath. And that was my life day and night, just the same thing over and over.
Yeah. When you made that shift, when that kind of arrived, that was what you had to do, you had no other choice. How did your family, did you guys sit down and have like a family meeting? This is what mom has to do. We don't know how long it'll take. Or did you just kind of go to bed one day and then things just changed for everybody else?
It just kind of morphed because I didn't expect to be sick so long. You know, I thought this is going to pass and then we're back to life again. I made it a point every night to go downstairs and watch a show with my husband. That was like our time together. That was really hard for me. I mean, shuffling down the stairs was quite the feat, but I really wanted to keep a connection there. I know now, being on the other side, we could have talked a lot more and communicated better, which would have been really helpful because it's hard on the whole family. My two sons are very different personalities. My older one is a lot more cerebral. My younger is just Mr. Social, and he wanted to be with me. He would crawl in bed and take naps and tell me, Mom, I wish I was sick instead of you. My older son, he just faded out. And honestly, I mean, it still brings me to tears because he's still dealing with the aftermath of that as well. But we were having a discussion a little while ago, and I was telling him, Jackson, you know, I was basically stuck in my room for a year and a half, like a prison. And he said, same, Mom. And he just isolated himself and tried to get through it alone. I remember one time going into his room when I was well enough to be out of bed for a little while, and I walked into his bedroom and he just backed up into the corner and had these eyes looking at me. And that tears my heart up because I love my kids so much. And I know it was really difficult for them to watch me go through what I did. There was one time in particular too, where I tried not to cry in front of my kids ever or lose it. I'm not that way anyway, but I didn't want to scare them or burden them. But there was one time in the bath, it was so bad. I just was crying out. It was like my whole body was itching, and I had these metal itcher things that I was scratched like my whole body. You know that feeling where you can't get down, you go crazy. And I was crying in the bath. And when I came out, I was back in bed again. And he came in with a joke book and he read the entire joke book to me.
Wow.
So sweet. Anyway,
wow.
It takes a toll.
Yeah, it does. It takes a toll on everybody. And I appreciate that you brought up, you know, the different personalities of the kids, because I feel like especially as the moms, we're so used to being in that caregiver role, and all of a sudden we're expecting, you know, children who aren't used to this to become caregivers and to know how to cope with these types of things. So, and now, you know, before I shift questions, I have to just say, listening to you, Kelly, I think all I can do is just stare at your face right now and think how amazing you are for a testimony and a testament to everybody that's watching right now that's in a space that's really, really hard and dark, because you look amazing. You sound so strong and like a warrior. And I can guarantee your kids have experienced something that they're going to grow through with you. And to know that they have their mom here. It's just, I have my own kids too. And you can't even imagine how much strength they have learned from you. So that's incredible. And I want to get a little bit more, Kelly, into your rising into advocacy, because that's where I think the cape comes out for sure on all of our behalf. But Rochelle, if we could shift to you, Rochelle, if you could tell us, Rochelle is serving on the ITSAN board and working with us as our money lady, the parts of life that I think are hard and impossible to imagine. So thank you for doing that for the board and for keeping our finances all in order. But Rochelle, can you just tell us how many years you are post-TSW and what percentage you believe you are healed at this point?
So I'm 6 years healed. I healed at the end of 2012. And I think I'm 100% healed from red skin syndrome, but I do have problems with contact eczema if I use products that I'm allergic to. I'm still super sensitive. And I think I will always be this way, because that's why I started using steroids, was because I was really sensitive and I reacted to everything. So like right now.
You healed pretty quickly though, right?
Yeah, 19 months.
Okay.
It took me 19 months. So the first 3 months I was bedridden because I was like a lobster. And you know, that bone deep itch, I couldn't do anything. But yeah, 19 months, And I really want to talk about like what I think helped me heal towards the end. Obviously, it's like anecdotal because I don't think there's enough evidence for it. But I really think, and I know it doesn't work for everyone because I've seen people write, on Facebook, they've ate very healthy, all green diet, and it hasn't helped. But really, when I started eating almost all greens, like one fruit a day, and then meat and a lot of water, that's when I noticed I was getting out of this 8-month long flare that was just stagnant. But yeah, I'm lucky because it took me 19 months.
What phase of life were you in at that point? I mean, you were going to school, working.
Yeah, working. I was working part-time, and I had just finished. I wasn't in school. So I wasn't in school when I started the withdrawal because I took all the classes I needed to get on a wait list for the nursing program. I'm sorry, I'm getting my history. It's been so long. But actually, right when I started withdrawal, I was in a nursing program for 1 month, and I had to quit that once I found out what was going on with me, and I committed to withdrawal. So I was in school for 1 month before I started the withdrawal. And then I was working part-time, and I had to let go of everything because the itch was so bad. You have to excuse my voice. I'm recovering from the flu, so I'm super raspy right now. But so yeah, it was just so bad. I was so itchy, and I was covered in red. I feel like I was going through withdrawal before I even started because the steroids stopped working. So like I was covered before I even stopped.
So your life goals, I mean, were completely interrupted. The plans that you had for yourself in nursing school. Did you go back to nursing school?
I did not. I did go back, but I didn't finish it. I decided to give that up and go to accounting.
I'm just curious, from nursing school, was it because of what you learned through your withdrawals that you were no longer faithful in the medical world, or was it just totally a change of interest?
It was partly, it was a little bit of that, but mostly it was because my body couldn't handle the routine. I had to do these crazy care plans that would take hours after school, and then I'd have to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, and I could not get up. Like I couldn't sleep, and then I couldn't get up, so I would miss class. And so I was just failing the program basically because of because I was still in withdrawal. That was 9 months before I healed. I was in the RN program, and I actually had boils all over my body from staph infection. And I had told the teachers about it, and I did not get much support or sympathy. And it was just hard to deal with those boils and the red skin. I mean, I would go to clinicals and everyone would ask me, what's wrong with your hands? I looked like a patient.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it. And after I failed it, I just realized, well, you know what? I'm not that interested in it anyways. I don't want to have to deal with having my hands tied because I don't want to give someone steroids or whatever.
Yeah. And so in that 19 months, was there anything else that you did? I mean, I think all of us are always looking for the latest strategy or tip, but besides food, was there anything else that you really felt like, do you think because you committed to healing so fast? I felt like had a very similar story to Kelly, but I really kind of drug myself through for quite a while before I finally succumbed to the idea that I needed to go to bed and I needed to heal. Do you feel like was that part of your fast healing, do you think?
Yeah. So from the moment I found out about red skin syndrome, the week before I withdrew, I committed right when I started the withdrawal. I knew I had to do it to get better. Kelly Palace's story made sense, and I just knew that this was the answer. But I think what the turning point for me was when I started to kind of stop resisting and stop getting upset that my flares weren't going away. So when I just decided to let go of the impatience and the struggle, and I decided to just have faith. And it worked for me. I just decided to believe that I will heal no matter how long it takes. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to let my body do its job. And that's when I started the diet as well. And then I got a little bit better in time. And then I started introducing the sunlight therapy outside for about 15 minutes a day. Like between 2 and 4 p.m. when it wasn't that hot. But yeah.
Have you always been such a positive person?
No. I have not always been such a positive person.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting. You know, you and Kelly have both said so far, the minute I found out about it, I just knew I had to do it.
Yeah. Well, it was just because when I found out about it, I had been searching, like scouring the internet for 2 years before I found Kelly Palace's website called addictedskin.com, before ITSAN even came about. And I was so relieved because I couldn't find any answer. And my eczema had spread with the steroids I was using. So I just knew like this was it. I just knew in my gut that, you know, that this is what I was dealing with. And the only way through it was to go through this horrendous process.
Talk about trusting our intuition. I feel like that's such a theme. It's like you have a knowing, you just know. Jody, I want to talk to you a little bit. First, I want you to just tell us what percentage are you healed and how long have you been in withdrawals?
Yeah, I've had a tough time answering that actually. I'm 3 years this month. Whoop, whoop. I don't know if you can have it's the anniversary, but that's mine. But I never had it full body. So I only ever had it on my neck, chest, face, and arms, and now hands. So if I don't count the lower half of my body, I'd probably say 70 to 75% healed. But again, it wasn't full body for me.
And when you say if I don't count the full body, is it because you're not sure if it's going there or because you're not letting it?
No, I don't think it will. I don't think it will at this point. No, not after 3 years.
Mine didn't go full body ever either. It skipped over the entire middle body and went straight to my ankles and feet. Little bit on my legs, lower legs. But I remember when you say that, I used to lay in the bath and I'd literally look at my torso and be like, you are not getting involved. You are not getting involved. I would just tell that part of the body. It was like from my knees up to my chest. No, thank you. I got
You're good.
Right now. Yeah. So, so I think that's promising at 3 years that it's not going there for you at all. But when I was talking to you, Jody, a couple of weeks ago about this and preparing for this, you said, I was talking about like in regards to living with topical steroid withdrawals, you made a statement. You said, what choice do you have? And it really caught my attention because I feel like you have a lot of choice. Maybe, right? I mean, we're all making a choice to be in this journey, and especially hearing what you go from day one to the end, it's not easy, not pretty. There's no research you do that goes, oh, I'll just take that easy route right there. So when you say what choice do you have, is it a feeling of acceptance that this is just what you have to do? Or do you feel like you've been consumed by the illness? Is this a positive thing or a negative thing? Or is it something you're still trying to wrestle with?
I think for me, as soon as I found out that the experience that I was having with my skin turning red every third day after not using steroids, as soon as I found out that was due to the steroids, that was it. Like I had no idea what was in store for me. I didn't know anything about the actual withdrawal process, but that was it. I never used them again knowingly. But for me, it's not me, it's my skin. Like, it's here. I have to accept it, and I deal with it and move on. And I put some strategies in place to kind of cope with it. I never had to quit my job, thank goodness. I didn't quit. I quit the gym like first thing right off the bat. I was pretty healthy at the time. I was going to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, and as you guys know, it doesn't work when you've got skin that's not happy with you. So I put an ice chest in my closet in the house that we were in at the time. We had an upstairs bedroom, and I didn't want to traipse downstairs every night in the middle of the night to get more ice. So my husband would fill that thing up for me. I mean, it was full of ice for probably a full year. And and I would come home from work and just sit with ice bags. And I am an ice bag expert. I have tried all kinds. And this Vamp brand is the one. I've had this thing for 2 years. It still does not have any holes in it. And one of the more recent strategies I put in place actually is I put this in the freezer, if you can see that, around a bottle.
Oh.
So when I take it out, it sits on my arm. It can just stay there very nicely. It's form-fitting. So telling you, I got this down.
You do. And it's amazing the little tips and strategies that we all come up with. I swear there's got to be like a patented idea, folded ice pack, something that is going to come out of somebody, one of the warriors that's gone through.
Yeah.
The stuff we come up with is so amazing. But when I talked to you, Jody, a couple of weeks ago, you were kind of, I think you just have such a fun way of kind of approaching this or talking about this, and you've got all of these little tips and strategies. But you were talking about, when you go to a game, how you just have your ice packs with you in a cooler, and you got the fridge upstairs in the closet. That's not normal. It's not typical, right, at all. I mean, there's so many things that I would look at, vacuuming constantly, changing my sheets. I remember the first time I got back to like washing my bed once a week, I was like, I felt like I was forgetting to do something because I had to change my sheets so often. Like, there's so many things that we just start to acquire in this journey that aren't normal. And so I would always wonder afterwards, people look around and they're like, what is she doing? She's always, even my family, but do you feel like it's exhausting you, or do you feel like you're just kind of happens as you move through? I think there's so many things we start to do. How is it wearing on you?
For me, it's interesting. I've got younger kids. We got started late in life with that. So I have a little girl that's getting ready to turn 8, actually, and my son is 9. And it's been 3 years. So 3/4 of my daughter's life has been like this. And obviously your attitude is not great when you're physically miserable, but I didn't want them to experience that or suffer from that. So somehow in my mind, and I do think this is a Jedi trick, I've compartmentalized TSW and RSS, just keep it separate from who I am and what I need to get done. And okay, if I get into an itch attack, I'll get my ice bag. I used to bring them to work even, hide them, and I'd have to go into the bathroom sometimes and just try to ice down and cool off. But I would just deal with it, and it was really important to me mentally to not give into it. I feel like TSW kind of nips at your heels, it's behind you all the time, getting ready to take you down. Mm-hmm. So it was important for me to, I have all my meetings for work where I booked them in the morning because that's when I felt the strongest. Mm-hmm. My face would, so dry that it would absorb the makeup, and I would look worse as the day goes on, and then my confidence kind of wanes a little bit. So little stuff like that, make my mornings as intense as possible, and by the end of the day, I was done. I would come home and sit on the couch. I have never watched so much TV in my life. I used to be really active and on the go quite a bit, but we started binge watching all these shows. It's just a different life. And I'm just now actually starting to feel like, I'm back in the gym. I just joined the gym a few weeks ago.
Nice.
Extremely painful experience, yes. But it's a long process, and people don't get it. And so I don't even try to explain it. When it was obvious that I had something wrong with me, and I'd get these looks, from people at work, I'd just say, oh, it's just a reaction to a medication. Mm-hmm. That's all I would say. They don't need to hear the whole story. We don't need to talk about it. Like, that's it. Yeah. And then if they ask questions, sure, I'd absolutely share and tell them, don't use steroids.
Yeah, I know. I used to always want to just have like little pamphlets I could just pass out, and just say, here, read it later. I don't have time to explain it again. But I want to ask a question. Any of you can answer this, but do any of you feel like you have a responsibility now to your family? We've all kind of talked about how much wear and tear this has taken on our kids and our spouse and our, the people in our lives, our family. How do you reckon with that now? Do you feel like you owe them something, or has it affected your relationships in a way that you now still have guilt, or are you just so happy to be on the healing side of this now?
I'll jump in there. I actually feel more of an obligation to this community because I had I guess, if you want to call it mild, you can, It was not wild in my experience. It's been pretty hellacious for 3 years, but I was not bedbound. I did not have to quit my job. I did not have to quit life. And it just makes me so angry that these things are still happening, and there's a whole population behind us that are getting ready to walk through ITSAN's doors with the same stories that we have. And I just get fired up about that. So for me, I gave all I could to my family. I really, tried to keep up with daily activities. I personally don't feel too guilty, but I feel more of an obligation to this community and stopping this madness.
Yeah, I agree with Jody. I feel more of a responsibility to the ITSAN family. I mean, I didn't really have, kids. I don't have kids, so I didn't have any guilt there, but I really feel like I'm indebted to ITSAN. Because if it wasn't for ITSAN, I don't know, if it wasn't for Kelly putting that first website up before ITSAN, I don't know if I would have found out what was wrong with me. And I was in dark times then. So, I mean, I just have to help the cause.
I think I would say it's made me appreciate time with my kids a lot more. I was so stuck in busyness, just doing things that weren't that important. And I think if there's one big takeaway that I learned in my time of isolation, being in the bath for like hours and hours and being by myself hours and hours, is that people are what is important. Not things, not even doing things or activities or whatever. People are what is important. So I feel a lot more appreciative of the time that I have with my family. Still learning how to communicate through some of that stuff because we're still dealing with the effects of it as a family. But I feel the same way as Rochelle and Jody, just a very deep sense of obligation to the people who are coming along behind us, because it could be millions. And I don't want them to have to suffer through what we did.
Yeah, I know in my own journey, I had to, ITSAN was my saving grace. Jody, you said you watch TV so much more. I would just log into that ITSAN forum and always click first on vets who have healed to see if anybody had a new light of hope. And then I would just go through and read and, try to stay as positive as possible. But a couple of things, I'm always thinking about who's listening right now and who might be in one of those spaces that we've all kind of touched on different parts of our journey. I know when I would read some of the comments, I would be looking for positive things, even though we know we're in such a dark place, like Kelly, you were saying, just in the bath, just itching. We have those moments that are like they're not us, but we're in it. And it's like, you can't even get away with it without just going through it. Everybody here has mentioned tonight, you were not going to become TSW. But in the journey, you do things happen that you don't want to become that. It's so different from you. But at the same time, all of you seem to have maintained such a positive outlook. Do you think it was because of the caregivers you had or because you knew what you had to live for or work for? Like what was your resolve when you're in that tub? It's 2 a.m. in the morning and everything seems to be hurting or going wrong. What's the resolve in that moment?
For me, it was, my mom, she was my caregiver. She helped me a lot with faith, because she would accompany me to my appointments with Dr. Rappaport, and he's the second person. I saw him often, probably like once every 2 to 3 months, just for reassurance. Because there wasn't many people at that time that I knew that were healed. So like you were trying to find, those positive messages. Vets, it's like a drug. You're trying to look for that answer and give you hope. And Dr. Rappaport was my hope. So him and my mom really helped me up here have faith.
Did anyone do something for you along the way that if you could be caregiving for somebody right now, you would make sure that you did that?
I had flowers by my bed almost for an entire 1.5 years straight. I don't know how.
From who? From your husband? From who?
Everyone. It was the craziest thing. I could count on my hands the days that I didn't have them there. And
Wow.
those mean so much to me. The beauty, like the smell, you know how we go through our own smell, and that bothered me so much. But yeah, I would get them dropped off from practical strangers who I'd barely even met, had heard my story, and they would just send me flowers. My husband would get them, my family, my kids. I mean, they just were there. That was a big deal for me. You know, another one was physical touch. A lot of people don't want to touch you because they don't want to hurt you. And so many of the people in my life just kind of faded out that way. And when someone would come and just hold my hand, like my mom came and stayed with us for several months too, when I was really bad, and she would just sit by the bed and hold my hand, and that meant so much to me. Because to have someone there and feel like you're not alone, they don't have to have the right words to say. They don't, I mean, there isn't really much that they can do, but if they sit with you, they cry with you, they believe in you.
Yeah.
I think the flowers are an amazing visual. You know, it's almost like when you're alone, that just seems like such a great way to give somebody that idea of I'm with you, thinking of you, even though we may not be with you.
Too, when people would come by, because I was so isolated, I only saw a handful of people like that year and a half, my sisters and, you know, when someone would stop by, that afterglow would last a week. So it doesn't have to be all the time, but you just bring such a bright spot to someone's life, just to, you know, let them know you care about them, you're thinking about them.
Yeah. Did you say the afterglow?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's awesome. I know for me, it was my mom sitting by the bathtub, because that's where I felt my best, was in the bath. And so she would just pull up a stool and just sit there, and I'd be like, Mom, you don't have to sit here. And she'd talk for hours and, you know, just sit along the side of the tub. She always would say, I didn't think I'd still be giving my daughter a bath when she was 39 years old. I'm like, happy time, let's go. Yes, that company. And definitely touch. Oh my gosh. I think if there's anything I could feel like I owe anybody after this, it's like I need to rub my family, because there was never a time I would not sit down next to them and I'd throw my arm over on their lap. Even at work, my poor colleagues, they would just be scratching me and rubbing me all the time, because that touch, it's like everything would just, I could finally exhale and take a break. That was the most exhausting thing for me, was the itch, that constant feeling of itchiness and unsettledness. So we've kind of answered a lot of these questions. Do we have any questions here? Okay, we don't have any questions from any viewers right now. Oh, we just got one. Hold on, let's read this one. How many of you, okay, here's a question from Julie. How many of you, when you tried to explain to any doctor that saw your condition and you were trying to explain what you had, would say to you, who diagnosed you, in all caps? So let's talk about that for a minute. Going to the doctor, you know, what was that part like for you? Did you have somebody that believed you and was walking the journey with you? And I know going back so many years, like all of you have, did you have doctors who looked at you like you were crazy?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think Julie wants to know, how do you explain to a doctor? How did you explain it so they didn't look at you like that? Or how did you get what you needed from them without feeling the pressure?
I didn't. I was fired as a patient, is how I call it, because I would call up to the office and say, I need some help. I don't understand what's happening. This was before I knew about TSW. And the only answer I got was, you need to go to a teaching hospital. That was it. I mean, I was not even a horrible case, you know.
So Jody, did you find ITSAN? Is that how you put your pieces together yourself? Exactly.
And I was working at the time with a functional medicine physician, and I told her what I had. And I think she was open-minded, but she felt like I should use steroids to get it under control before I quit using steroids. And I remember even then just looking at her.
That sounds so funny.
How can what caused this? Yeah, how can what caused this also fix me? That, to me, that does not make it. I was trying to be respectful, but no, that does not make any sense to me at all. Yeah, and how
long, Jody, did you go through this before you knew what you were going through?
You know, I've always been very conservative when it comes to medications. So even though my crazy allergist prescribed literally a bottle of Desinide a week for over a year with no follow-ups, I used maybe, in their little bottles, about this big, 2 ounces, 3 ounces, I used maybe 3 of those over 6 months, and I would use it on my eyes. I think, honestly, it's so ridiculous. I think it was bad mascara, and my eyes kept, getting puffy and swollen. So I would use steroid creams instead of replacing my mascara. And every 3rd day, I didn't put a little dot, my eyes would turn red. And I also had a rash on my neck and the inside of my arms. And, my dermatologist started me out with clobetasol, which I know now is a class 1 super potent steroid. Why she didn't say, hey, go try some hydrocortisone cream first and stair-step me up, I don't know why she did not do that. I've since written letters to all of my physicians and telling them what this is, sent them the ITSAN brochure. I was respectful and unemotional, but they need to know that this is happening. I'm probably getting off track here a little bit, but that was my experience.
You make a good point, though, with the ITSAN resources. So if there's somebody right now who's looking for medical care or support, what does ITSAN have available right now that they could at least print out or take with them? Or is there something you would recommend people do or take so that they maybe have an extra voice?
There is a brochure on the itsan.org site. I think you can even find it really quickly by typing in the word brochure. Kelly, does that sound right? I think that's it. If you guys are looking for it and you can't find it, let me know. But that brochure explains the differences between eczema and RSS. ITSAN is also keeping a list of TSW-friendly physicians. We need updates to our website really badly, so this is not on the website. But if anybody in that's listening is looking for a TSW-friendly physician, let us know. We are keeping a list of that.
Does that include
and
the
alternative?
alternative
Medical research out there as well?
Okay. And that list, does that include alternative medicine as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's basically all of the doctors that have been referred to us from members who have seen them. They may not even know how to treat TSW, but they acknowledge it and they're willing to work with the patient. So I have found in my own experience with this question, because I think it's a good one, because so many people experience this same thing where they go to the doctor and they're dismissed or they're scorned or, they're made to feel that they're ridiculous, which that's a very tricky place to be in because you're already suffering so much and you don't know where to turn. You need a doctor to acknowledge what's happening. I have found with myself, and I think all of us here, you have that gut knowing that this is happening. This is a thing. There's so much literature out there proving that this is in existence. It's just not widely known in the medical community. I have found when I go into a doctor, you get confidence and you just don't back down. You don't let them make you feel small or that you're stupid or anything like that. We're intelligent human beings. We've done a lot of our own research. This is our body. We're our own health advocate. So if you don't want to treat me, then I'll find someone else who is willing to do that. But yeah, I think that's...
Sorry, Kelly.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I brought Dr. Akrapour's published medical study, his first study papers to one of the top derms in San Diego. This woman, and she kind of was a little condescending and said, she'll read it, but, I really need to follow the protocol, which is steroids. It's kind of similar to Jody. So, and that was like 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah, it's just a big problem with getting recognition and doctors acknowledging that this is an actual thing.
Well, yeah. And I think what you said, Kelly, about, trusting yourself and your own instincts. So when I would go to doctors, it was more a matter of, I'm not going to use steroids. Do you have something else? Is there a remedy for itch or pain or sleep or something else that maybe I could get around? And I obviously used a lot of alternative medicine myself, but it was like, that was the one thing that's not going to happen. So dermatologist, you cannot give me steroids. Not that, but what else can you help me with as far as symptom relief, but not that necessarily. Somebody had asked us too, did any of you go through this not knowing what you had? But I think everybody had that gut knowing, right? We all kind of knew.
I didn't for a long time. I mean, my skin was turning red for at least a year, like I said, the third day I didn't have steroids on. I would turn red and, I need to use more medicine. I don't know what's going on. It must be some kind of allergy. It was not until at least a year later when I found it, and I was like, oh, steroids could be the cause. Okay, I'm out. I'm done.
Yeah, and I say it like I knew once I heard what I had heard of topical steroid withdrawals, because I think I chased it for probably 14 years from my 20s all the way through my 30s, because I had allergy shots. I was getting allergy shots. I was getting those random hives. I thought I was allergic to the world. I thought I was allergic to my husband. I mean, I didn't know what was going on, but I was constantly having something. So between taking all these different things for, random symptoms, it was like the minute I heard about topical steroid withdrawals, I was like, that's it. That is it. I know that's the cause. So,
yeah, I was going through withdrawal for 2 years before I actually figured out it was the steroids. And then I actually stopped, sustained completely. But like Jody, for a year, my body was red off and on for 2 years. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty pale. So showing up at work for 2 years with an awful, awful sunburn was, I started to make jokes about it. Like, yeah, I can't seem to get out of the sun. Yeah. I mean, I'm white, so I was like, it was completely obvious that I was really almost scalded looking.
Yeah, I know. I remember my little boy is 7 now. And so 5 years in, he was 2, just a baby. He pretty much has only known me. He still to this day will say, Mom, you don't have that red skin anymore. But he drew a picture in preschool of our family and I was red. Aww. And the rest of the family was normal. But he only knew me as a red person. I don't even think he thought it was different or necessarily wrong. I was just red. And he'd always say, why do you have red skin, Mom? Nobody in the family has red. I'm like, well, here's a picture. But so let's see. We have kind of a question that's a little more specific if anybody wants to respond to it. But what are your thoughts on this NMT treatment by Dr. Tsw? Is that it in the group? Apparently you can heal if you do it properly for 3 months. Anyone want to comment on some of the different ideas?
I'm not familiar with it.
Well, Dr.
Kelly, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, Dr. Tsw is the head of dermatology in a hospital in Japan, and we actually go back and forth with him. He's been really helpful because he's done.
Hey, Kelly, can you get closer to your mic? Sure. You're really faint. Sorry.
So I'll repeat myself. Dr. Tsw is the head of dermatology in a hospital in Japan, and he has a wing that treats a lot of TSW patients. And they do moisture withdrawal. It is pretty severe, but they are all under a doctor's care in this facility, which I tried moisture withdrawal myself and it was not happening. So I don't know if it would have been different if I was in Japan under his care and in a bed and not moving. But when I tried doing that, it was like I only did it for 2 days. I was like a leper and the skin was coming down into the flesh and it just, I couldn't handle the pain level. And so I just felt like to make it through the way that I know how, with what I have to work with, I need to just listen to my body and do what I need to do. So I know there's a lot of debate about this, and it would probably be interesting maybe even to have Dr. Tsw come and talk so people can decide, because we really all have to decide which way we're going to do this. There aren't a lot of answers at this point, so you just have to make your best way through.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think Dr. Tsw is the one you actually get to go stay in the treatment center, right? You actually become like a resident. It's like a rehab center, which I thought of many, many times going through withdrawals. I wish there was a place where I could just go and everybody there was going through this. I thought about that if we could have some in-home treatment centers for this specific disease like you do for other addictions. But I know what I appreciated most about ITSAN at the time was being able to read so many different approaches and getting, just seeing what was working for one person. One person was, eating 10 apples a day and one person was sleeping upside down. It was like, whatever, because I think I was in such a place of just desperately wanting something that I was willing to try anything that, like Kelly said, that felt like I could do it. And so moisture withdrawal for me, I think I did my face for a month and I did my arms. I just wrapped them in gauze. But I still bathed. I didn't, I just wouldn't put anything on afterwards. And it only lasted so long. And then it was like my skin didn't want that anymore. And so I feel like through the whole journey, my skin would kind of inform me and tell me, this works now. You know, sometimes cool felt better, sometimes heat felt better. Some people can't get in the tub. I lived in the bath for 2 years. But I appreciated always seeing the different approaches. So I would love to be able to bring in maybe some different doctors to talk about the reason behind it. You know, what is Dr. Sato's philosophy behind that, and what's the skin actually doing? And maybe that'll give us a little more science to at least, you know, try to understand maybe why that is helpful to the skin or not helpful to the skin. Yeah, and then somebody just commented to say it would be much easier to do in his center versus doing it home alone. And I would agree.
I will say that I did cycle through moisture withdrawal. Like some weeks I would put on coconut oil because that's all I could tolerate. And then other weeks I just didn't do anything because I was scared of getting addicted to the coconut oil or any moisturizer. I wanted to let my body kind of learn how to moisturize itself again. So I just did it out of intuition, I guess. I was scared to get addicted to it.
Yeah. We have one more question for you, Jody, specifically, but one of our viewers too just said, I'm struggling with the moisture withdrawal, and if I feel like a failure, like I'm prolonging TSW by not doing it. And, you know, I think we just can't add that guilt because every journey has been so different.
Yeah. Let that go. Let that go. You got to make yourself as comfortable as possible. Now, I will say if your skin is broken and you've got wounds, lotion's probably not the best idea for that. But if it's just super dry, I mean, I didn't do moisture withdrawal either. I didn't slather it on, but, you know, in the morning out of the shower, I'd put some kind of lotion on, just a little bit, and then not use it again till the next day.
Yeah, and I say you're going to go through and you're going to heal. So if there's a way to make yourself feel a little more comfortable, in due time, you're coming through this. Jody, one of our viewers wants to know, did you end up finding a doctor in the end who did accept your diagnosis, or did you just ultimately cope with the withdrawal process on your own?
No, I decided to be my own health advocate, and I was done with these Western medicine doctors, and I realized that there's nothing that can get us through this process any more than time. That's the ultimate healer. Now, I will say, I probably had my worst flare actually on the ITSAN conference that weekend, starting then, and then for the next 2 weeks, I was just almost immobile, just super, super red and swollen. And for me, I started the TCM herbs with Olivia that spoke at the conference, and within 4 weeks, really, 1 month, huge, huge difference. I still can't believe it. I'm still taking them, but I think the progress has slowed a little bit, but I'm much more comfortable now. So for me, that was huge. And then I get sunlight, you know, as much as I can tolerate. I'm pretty pale, so I'm not out there too often, but as much as I can every day, I try to get some sunlight and plenty of water.
In our final minutes here, I would just like to ask the viewers again to, one, thank you for joining us tonight, but also if you have topics or ideas, I think that, you know, maybe bringing in some of the medical experts who have been very supportive of ITSAN and have ideas about, you know, our skin and our healing process would be a great future webinar. So I will, you know, work on that with the board. Kelly, could you give us just an update and I think a hopeful message about the progress that ITSAN is making and where we're headed as we all go through this journey of unknown territory. There is more information, there is more hope. I know when I came to the conference in Atlanta, in October, I was so impressed and so excited and so hopeful, and it was a new investment for me that I needed to get back with ITSAN and support the work that's going on, the efforts, because, you know, to anybody that's sitting out there right now struggling, there are so many people here that are rallying on your behalf. So Kelly, you're leading this for us. Can you kind of just give us an update? What's new? What's going on? What can we look forward to? And how can we help?
Yeah, wow. Thank you, Molly. I'm so excited because so many doors are opening for us where we were getting so much resistance in the past years. I'm truly overjoyed just seeing the doors that keep opening. And it's amazing how they keep getting set up. It's like the right time, the right person, making the right connections. And everyone here is a part of that. I mean, we are all passionate about like anything we can do to get the message out, we're doing it. And we're all putting our heads together about that. So some of the stuff that we're working on right now, I'm actually working with, well, it's ITSAN, but 5 different organizations are hosting a patient-funded or patient-focused drug development meeting with the FDA. And what this is a big panel of patients talking about their experience with eczema. So this whole meeting is about eczema, talking to the FDA about the burden of the disease, how treatments are working, if they're not, or if they are, and what are we asking of the FDA. And this is amazing opportunity for us because we have needed to have this face-to-face with the FDA. We've had 400 people in our group already report an adverse effect to them. So we did a follow-up with the FDA and asked them, okay, will you please reevaluate topical steroids so that you can change labels, so standard of care will change with doctors. We need certain things to happen so that across the board, the medical world will acknowledge this and treat it correctly. So these are some of the steps that we're taking, reporting to the FDA. If you haven't done that yet, you can do that. And then we did a follow-up. They asked us to make a citizen petition, which is a legal document asking them specifically to do something. We're working on that. We have this meeting in September with these 5 different organizations that our patients will be able to tell the FDA what's happening. Please reevaluate. Please, create some different options for us, people who cannot use steroids, but just to make them aware of what's going on. I'm heading to the American Academy of Dermatology annual meeting this next week and have already several meetings set up with different people there to talk about raising awareness of TSW and how we can work changing legislation so that we don't have to go through things like step therapy that health insurance companies mandate for a lot of patients. So they want them to go through the cheap methods of treatment before they'll allow them access to different, more expensive options. So obviously we cannot go through steroids again. So that's something that we're fighting for and pushing for. And we've had a lot of success here in the state of Georgia, and now it's being introduced in a federal level. So if you're interested in getting involved in that on a state level or federal level, let me know. Rochelle and I tomorrow are going to the state capitol, and I'm going to be speaking about advocacy and training patient advocates to step up and talk to their senators and their representatives, because honestly, and I heard this last year at a session where these advanced nurse practitioners were trying to be able to practice in rural areas of Georgia, and the doctors kept on stonewalling them and making them not be able to move forward with that. Well, they finally decided if the doctors aren't going to listen, we're going to go one step above to the legislators to make laws to allow us to practice to these women who they have to drive 100 miles to, give birth. It's just ridiculous. They need help. So I thought, well, that's a great idea. If doctors aren't going to listen to us, we're just going to go one step above to the legislators and start making laws about things like this. And we can all make a difference. I didn't realize how much we all personally can make a difference if you just step up and get involved. And
No pun intended.
Right, exactly. And it was a year and a half ago. It was at the legislative conference for the American Academy of Dermatology in DC. And it was, I'm paraphrasing this because this is something Thomas Jefferson said, that America is not governed by the majority, it's governed by the majority who participate. And so all it takes is for us to step into the game and do something and make a change. And that's what we are all here to do. We want to raise awareness to the medical community. We want to provide more research. One of the other things that we're working on is proving prevalence of TSW, because until we can do that, a lot of researchers aren't even willing to look into this. So they think, oh, this is rare. This happens to 1 in a million. But we're realizing, no, it's probably more like 10, even more % of people using steroids, which is millions. That's 3 million in the US. So if we can prove prevalence in some of these biologic clinical trials that pharmaceutical companies are doing, then we can take that next step to, okay, now we need to change these labels. We need to look in genetics and find out why this is happening to a certain population. So I am having a meeting with the research and development team of a certain pharmaceutical company next week, and hopefully another one too, just to get out there and tell our story. I actually met with a lady who is very high up in this pharmaceutical company. She previously worked with the World Health Organization. And we were sitting down for lunch, talked for 2.5 hours, and I'm telling her my story, and she was just wide-eyed. I have never heard of this before. I can't believe this is happening. I mean, this is what it takes. It takes face-to-face. It takes making a human connection with some of the people who can actually make changes. I showed her my pictures. I went through a terrible herpeticum outbreak, and she actually spun around. She couldn't even look at the pictures on my computer. They're so horrific. So we are just knocking on every door we can, and we're walking through every door that opens up for us in order to, change the tide of what's happening. So that people, when they go to their doctor, this is actually recognized, and this doctor knows how to treat it, how to diagnose it, how to prevent it. That's what our mission is here.
And that's our president. So I think another topic, another question that just came in, another topic we need to do with with the board, Kelly, with you, is people want to know, what can we do? Because I think when you're suffering, you've gone through something, knowing that you have a voice and your suffering is going to do something to help somebody is usually what helps you get through. So people want to know, what can we do right now? What, if there's one action we could all take, what would it be?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Jody.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Go ahead.
I just put it actually in the chat. I think we're on the same page here. The number one thing that you can do right now is FDA adverse reaction, to fill out that report, because that gets your voice into our government.
Where's that
report? Absolutely critical.
Jody?
I just put the link in the chat.
Okay.
To the online one, to the FDA, and any person in any country can use this link. It is FDA, which is U.S. based, but anyone can use this. The other thing too, and I don't have this on the ITSAN site yet, but we put together an activist kit for those of you that are in the United States. And there's a little list of things that you can do. You could do one thing a week. You're still recovering. You don't have a lot of energy maybe. Just do one thing a week or every 2 weeks. But there's letters in there that you can send to your physicians. The adverse reaction link is in there as well. There's a whole list of things that we can be doing, but we've got to speak up. Another thing, I personally am very interested in working with anyone who wants to send it to me. And I think we've got them on, all 4 of us, but the peace stories. So your experience, your pictures, your medications that you were using, we're putting all of those into a physical notebook. So when Kelly and anyone else goes to these conferences, this notebook is sitting out on a table, and the dermatologist can come up and just look at our stories. There's nothing that speaks more than seeing people and their own experience. And Kelly, you saw that, people would come up and look at that for quite a while, right?
They're very interested. When I went to the investigative dermatology conference last year, I had 2 people out of 100 who came and talked with me say, well, I don't know if I believe in that. Everybody else was just so engaged. They were so interested. They were appalled when they saw all of the connections between our stories. There is a lot of interest in this, and it's a really good time for us to bring our message out, because there's a lot of buzz going around eczema right now and all of the research that's booming with biologics and things. So there's a lot of excitement, but it's a great time for us to come up and say, okay, now you also need to look at this piece, that people are having this adverse reaction. One other thing I'd add to Jody's what can you do list is, in September, when we have that meeting with the FDA, we're going to be live webcasting. And if we can get a huge number from our group, that would speak volumes to the FDA. When they can see that so many TSW people, if we could get a couple hundred on there, that would blow their minds. Because I remember one of the things, I went to a lobbyist boot camp to learn about legislation, or here in the state of Georgia. And this lobbyist was saying, if a senator or representative gives 1 letter from their constituent, they may or may not pay attention. If they get 10, now they're going to start paying attention. If you get 30, you need to act. If you get 100, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
Like, this is huge, because so many people just don't get involved. So if we can get our people we've already got a lot of energy and a lot of passion because we're revved up. This is wrong. We need to change this. If we can get a lot of people in our group to speak up, that is going to really change, the way that this is viewed. So.
Fantastic. Thank you. There's so much work to be done. And I think that as a board, we'll definitely put some of those things on our agenda to think about how we can start to rally some of the momentum to support whoever it is that's out there soldiering ahead. So good luck to Kelly and Rochelle tomorrow. Thank you for the work that you're going to be doing on behalf tomorrow. And really thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. We definitely wish you well. And to this board, thanks for sharing a part of your story. I know how emotional it is, how personal it is, but also how much we appreciate the work that you're doing to share the message. So keep sharing, everybody. Remember to ask anybody you know that's looking for a cause to donate to go to our ITSAN website and donate, because we are completely donation funded. We don't have big donors and sponsors at this time. So please encourage people when you're looking for fundraisers and things like that to pay attention to topical steroid withdrawals and ITSAN, because we need the support. And I've got a few topics for next month, so we hope to bring you more great information, education, resources, and support. So to all of you, we wish you a very good night and keep sharing this message. Thank you again to the board. I appreciate your time tonight. Good night, everybody.
Molly.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.